Never demand someone open their private gate for your party guests, especially when that someone is a retired engineer who built that gate himself and knows exactly how to make your life miserable without breaking a single rule. HOA presidents often think they own the neighborhood. They make rules, enforce fines, and generally act like their word is law. But sometimes they get so entitled they forget where their property ends and someone else's begins. This is the story of how Karen, an HOA president with a massive sense of entitlement, demanded I open my private gate for her daughter's wedding guests, and how I turned her perfect day into a disaster she'd never forget. My name is Frank Miller. I'm 68 years old, a retired mechanical engineer, and I live alone in a cabin I built with my own hands 20 years ago. My cabin sits on 5 acres of wooded land at the end of a private road. There's a gate at the entrance to my property, a heavy, wrought iron thing I designed and installed myself. It's not just for show, it's there for a reason. I value my privacy. My property borders the Pine Ridge subdivision, a fancy gated community with big houses, perfect lawns, and an HOA run by people who have nothing better to do than measure grass height and complain about fence colors. I'm not part of Pine Ridge. My land was here long before the subdivision was built, and I have no interest in their rules or their community. For years, I coexisted peacefully with my neighbors in Pine Ridge. They'd wave when they drove past. I'd wave back. No problems. Then Karen Thompson became president of the Pine Ridge HOA. Karen is in her late 50s, married to a doctor, and apparently thinks she's royalty. She drives a white Lexus with a Pine Ridge HOA president license plate frame and carries a clipboard like it's a scepter. Within months of becoming president, she started trying to extend her authority beyond the boundaries of Pine Ridge. The first time I had a run-in with Karen was when she showed up at my gate one afternoon. I was working on my truck when I heard a car pull up. Karen got out, clipboard in hand, and marched to my gate. "Mr. Miller," she called through the iron bars. I wiped grease from my hands and walked over. "That's me. I'm Karen Thompson, president of the Pine Ridge Homeowners Association. I need to talk to you about your property." I leaned against the gate post. "What about it?" Karen pointed at my cabin. "Your property is an eyesore. It doesn't fit with the aesthetic of our community." I looked around at my cabin, wooden siding, stone chimney, solar panels on the roof. "It's my property. I like it the way it is." Karen's smile tightened. "Well, it's lowering property values in Pine Ridge. We'd like you to make some improvements." I laughed. "Lady, I'm not part of your HOA. You have no say in what I do with my property." Karen's face turned red. "That's where you're wrong. Your property is adjacent to our community, which gives us the right to ensure it doesn't negatively impact our residents." I shook my head. "No, it doesn't. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." I turned and walked back to my truck. Karen stood there for a moment, then got her Lexus and drove off. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. A week later, I received a letter from the Pine Ridge HOA. It listed numerous violations on my property, including unapproved structure, my cabin, unapproved vegetation, the trees around my cabin, and unapproved fencing, my gate. The letter demanded that I correct these violations within 30 days or face fines of $100 per day. I wrote back, "I am not a member of your HOA. Your rules do not apply to me. Do not contact me again." Karen didn't like that. She started showing up at my gate regularly, sometimes twice a day, always with some new complaint or demand. I ignored her. I'd see her Lexus pull up, I'd finish whatever I was doing, and by the time I walked to the gate, she'd be gone. She never tried to open the gate herself. She knew it was locked, and she had no key. Then came the wedding. I found out about it from my neighbor, Joe, who lived in Pine Ridge. Karen's daughter is getting married next month. He told me one day as we were chatting by the fence. They're having a reception at Karen's house. Her backyard is huge, but it's not big enough for all the guests, so she's planning to use the empty lot next to her property for parking. I nodded. Good for her. Joe looked uncomfortable. "The thing is, Frank, the empty lot she wants to use for parking, it's not empty. It's your land." I raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" Joe pulled out his phone and showed me a map of the area. He pointed to Karen's house, then to the wooded area behind it. "This is Karen's property. And this," he said, pointing to the area behind Karen's property, "is your land." Karen's been telling everyone that this whole area belongs to Pine Ridge, but according to the county records, this part is yours. I looked at the map, then at the actual land. Joe was right. Karen had been telling people that the land behind her house was part of Pine Ridge, but it was actually mine. And it was the only access point to the area she wanted to use for wedding parking. Thanks for telling me, Joe, I said. I'll take care of it. The next day, I went out to the property line between my land and Karen's. I'd always known where the line was, but I'd never marked it clearly. I spent the day installing a new fence, 6 feet high, with no trespassing signs every 10 feet. I also installed a new, sturdier gate where the old dirt path crossed from Karen's property to mine. This gate had a keypad lock, no key, no way to open it without the code. A few days later, Karen showed up at my main gate, furious. "Mr. Miller, what is the meaning of this?" she yelled, pointing toward the new fence and gate. I walked over to the gate. "Hello, Karen. What seems to be the problem?" "You built a fence and a gate on my property," she snapped. I shook my head. "No, Karen. I built a fence and a gate on my property. The county records clearly show that this land belongs to me. You've been telling people it's part of Pine Ridge, but it's not. It's mine." Karen's face turned red. "That's not true. That land has always been part of Pine Ridge." I pulled out my phone and showed her the county property map. "No, Karen. It's mine. Always has been. You've been using it without permission for years, but that ends now." Karen looked like she might explode. "My daughter's wedding is in 2 weeks. I need that land for parking." I shrugged. "Not my problem. It's my land, and I'm not giving you permission to use it." Karen's voice rose. "You can't do this. I'll sue you." I smiled. "Go ahead. I have the county records on my side." "What do you have?" Karen glared at me, then stormed back to her Lexus and sped off. I knew this wasn't over. The week of the wedding, Karen tried everything. She sent me letters offering to rent the land, to buy it, to trade me for other property. I ignored all her offers. She had people from the HOA come to my gate, try to reason with me, to guilt me into letting her use the land for the wedding. I stood firm. The day before the wedding, Karen showed up at my gate again. This time, she wasn't angry. She was crying. "Mr. Miller, please," she begged. "My daughter has dreamed of this wedding her whole life. All the guests are coming from out of town. Everything is planned. If I can't use that land for parking, the whole thing will be ruined." I felt a twinge of sympathy, but I remembered how she'd tried to bully me, how she'd lied about the land being hers, how she'd acted like she was entitled to whatever she wanted. "Karen, you should have thought about that before you try to claim land that wasn't yours," I said. "The answer is no." Karen's tears dried up. Her face hardened. "You'll regret this, Mr. Miller. I'll make sure of it." She got her Lexus and drove off. I knew she was planning something, but I wasn't worried. I was ready for her. The day of the wedding arrived. It was a beautiful Saturday in June. From my cabin, I could hear the music starting at Karen's house. I could see cars arriving, guests getting out, looking around in confusion. There was nowhere to park. Around noon, Karen's Lexus pulled up to my gate. Karen got out, followed by a man in a tuxedo, her husband, Dr. Thompson. Karen walked up to the gate, her face a mask of fury. "Mr. Miller, open this gate right now," she demanded. I walked over, holding a cup of coffee. "Good afternoon, Karen. Having a nice party?" "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "My guests need to park. Open this gate." I shook my head. "No, got in. This is my property. You're not welcome here." Dr. Thompson stepped forward. "Mr. Miller, please. Just let us use the land for a few hours. We'll pay you whatever you want." I looked at him. "Doctor, it's not about money. It's about respect. Your wife has been disrespectful to me from day one. She's lied about my land, tried to claim it as her own, and now she expects me to help her out of a jam of her own making." The answer is no. Karen lost it. She started screaming, cursing, pounding on my gate. Her guests could hear her from down the road. Some of them started walking over to see what was happening. "You're ruining my daughter's wedding." Karen shrieked. "You're a horrible, horrible man." I just stood there drinking my coffee, letting her make a scene. The more she yelled, the more guests gathered. I could see the embarrassment on their faces, the confusion. Finally, Dr. Thompson managed to pull Karen away from the gate. "Come on, Karen," he said quietly. "You're making a scene." Karen let him lead her back to the Lexus, but not before she turned and yelled, "This isn't over, Miller. I'll get you for this." They drove off, leaving the guests standing around, wondering what had just happened. I went back to my cabin, finished my coffee, and watched as Karen's wedding guests struggled to find parking blocks away from her house. But I wasn't done yet. Karen had threatened me, and I wanted to make sure she never messed with me again. The next day, I hired a surveyor to officially mark the property line between my land and Karen's. I also filed a formal complaint with the county, documenting Karen's attempt to claim my land as her own. And I sent a bill to Karen for unauthorized use of my land for the past 5 years, which came to $50,000. Karen was furious. She tried to fight the survey, but the county confirmed that the land was indeed mine. She tried to ignore my bill, so I took her to small claims court. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering Karen to pay me $50,000 plus court costs. The Pine Ridge HOA wasn't happy with Karen. She had lied to them about the land, had embarrassed them with her behavior at the wedding, and had cost them $50,000 in damages. At the next HOA meeting, they voted to remove her as president. Karen was humiliated. She sold her house in Pine Ridge and moved away. Last I heard, she and her husband were living in a small apartment in another city, and her daughter, whose wedding she'd been so desperate to make perfect, had stopped speaking to her. As for me, I planted a row of trees along the new fence, ensuring even more privacy between my land and Pine Ridge. I also installed a sign on the gate. Private property. No trespassing. Violators will be prosecuted. By order of Frank Miller. The lesson? Entitlement doesn't give you the right to take what isn't yours. And when you treat people like they're beneath you, don't be surprised when they refuse to help you out of a jam of your own making. Because some of us value our privacy, our property, and our self-respect more than we care about your perfect day. Subscribe for more stories about HOAs getting what they deserve.